Hello everyone, this is Angela and welcome to my channel. Please be sure to like, subscribe, share, comment, and hit the notifications bell so you will know whenever I release a new video. This is the second of two videos where I am doing oracle readings about the collective reaction of Black women upon hearing the news that Kevin Samuels passed. I normally provide the interpretations from both oracles in one video. However, these interpretations were so in-depth, it was best to just divide it all between two separate videos. So this video is part 2, and I will cover the response provided when I consulted the I-Ching oracle and what it means to us as Black women. Now, in the first video, I went into a detailed interpretation of the Metu Neter oracle's response to the reaction of Black women upon hearing the news that Kevin Samuels transitioned. Now there is a concern, but a lot of encouragement. So be sure to view part 1 so that you can have a full picture of this situation. Now let's get into it. I consulted the I-Ching oracle regarding this situation, and it provided 2 hexagrams. The first hexagram was number 44, with the 6th or the top line stressed or broken, which turns into hexagram number 28. Now, before I go into the readings, let me share a bit of technicality on the I-Ching. In the I-Ching, a hexagram is simply 6 lines stacked one on top of the other. The I-Ching has a total of 64 hexagrams, or 64 combinations of 6 lines stacked on, one on top of the other. Each hexagram is divided into 2 trigrams, or basically 2 sets of 3 lines apiece. So there's one trigram, which is 3 lines stacked on top of another trigram, another 3 lines. Altogether, it makes one hexagram. Okay. There are 8 trigrams. Each trigram represents many things, but primarily they're related to elements in nature, and also they're seen as relatives within a family. Each line in a hexagram can either be a solid yang, or a masculine line, or a broken yin, or feminine line. Okay, so keep this in mind as I explain hexagram number 44, which is one of the most controversial hexagrams in the I-Ching. There are so many meanings attached to hexagram number 44, which is titled Coming to Meet. First of all, the number 4 is considered an unlucky number in Chinese culture. So you can imagine that hexagram number 44 is very unlucky and has an ominous meaning in the eyes of some. Bear in mind that the I-Ching was developed over thousands of years ago, and during a time when China was a staunch patriarchy, where the man a woman married sealed her fate. So naturally, well-to-do men were the ones who had women flocking around them. Now imagine if the opposite occurred, that well-to-do men were flocking around one woman. They may have seen it as unlucky. Okay, so here is a picture of the hexagram itself. You'll see the solid lines are known as the yang lines, which represent masculine concepts. The broken line at the bottom is a yin line, and it represents feminine concepts. Now, this one broken feminine yin line is located at the bottom, which is considered the foundation of this hexagram. So it's holding up the 5 masculine lines, and therefore it is indicative that the feminine holds the power in this situation. And now here's a picture of the card representing its concepts. You can see the hexagram at the top of this card as well. Now let's look at the picture. You see that there is a woman located in the center. Surrounding this one woman are 5 men. This is the 44th hexagram, which is titled Coming to Meet, and this is what it means. And this is what the men are doing for the woman. They are all coming to meet her. On one hand, this is confirmation of Sekhmet's energy. I mentioned earlier that Sekhmet has been unleashed. Sekhmet is unleashed when men have become unrepentant. So in this coming to meet, you can think of the woman or the feminine energy as Sekhmet, and the men are begging to appease her in order for her to stop her rampage. Okay, that's one interpretation. Another meaning or interpretation is that this is confirmation of Black women's ability to move successfully ahead. Again, the woman is in the center, and this is symbolic of the demographic of Black women. This is showing that there are men who are flocking to be with her. This is especially true because Black women are swirling in higher numbers than before. Black women are embracing divestment, which places our collective into spaces where there are men who will be desiring our hands in courtship and marriage. Okay, so moving along to another interpretation of Hexagram 44 is that the yin, or feminine power, is being reborn again after being buried so long beneath masculine concepts that misunderstood her. Kevin Samuels and his followers projected a lot of their issues on the demographic of Black women. They were telling us to get a dog and die alone, when the fact is that Black males are the ones who are at the highest risk of doing just that very thing. So it is seen as an instruction to Black males in this case that when you want to criticize something, first look inward at yourself, as opposed to controlling others and making them behave in a manner that hides your own deficiencies. Okay. Hexagram number 44 is comprised of the trigrams that represent heaven on top and wind beneath. So what happens when heaven interacts with the wind? It forms a tornado, and tornadoes are uncontrollable. So another interpretation is that this hexagram represents a woman who a man is advised not to marry. He is told that she cannot be controlled. It'll be like controlling a tornado. The best that he can do with her is have a one-night stand, if he's able to succeed at doing that. It sounds a lot like the manosphere rhetoric, correct? Bear in mind that when the I-Ching was introduced to China during ancient times, this was when women, and especially wives, were expected to be outright subservient to their husbands. So a woman who demonstrated her complexity as a human being beyond cooking a meal and beyond reproductive activities, if she dared to live outside of the box that was designed for her to be shoved into, the box that is comprised of these 5 yin lines that are pushing her beneath, these 5 yang lines that are pushing her beneath, okay, she was considered to be dangerous, like a tornado. Okay. Ironically, it is this very type of woman that men tend to be wildly attracted to. She's uncommon, she's rare, and every man will want her hand in courtship and marriage. For this reason, she will always have a line of suitors who will want to marry her. So from the perspective of women, this is great, because you will always have men lining up for you. However, for a man who wants to be with her, this can be quite the challenge. This is because he will have to compete against all the other men in order to win her. He will constantly have to fight the other men in order to keep her. And even then, it can be dangerous because she may not stay. What this means as it pertains to Black women reacting to the passing of Kevin Samuels is his followers and sympathizers, they don't know what to do. Okay. This is confirmation that they are in an unlucky situation. You, the Black woman, will have lines of men, quote unquote, coming to meet you. Remember the title of the hexagram. You are the lucky one, but they are not. Kevin Samuels, the Black Manosphere, and all of the misogynoirists, or those that are misogynist against black women, have a tornado on their hands. That tornado is you, the black woman. They cannot control you. The old tricks are no longer working. They know that telling you to submit is not going to work. They've thrown T.I. at you, and you threw him back. They've sprinkled you with Creflo Dollar, and you turned your flame towards him and evaporated him back to where he was. The National Black Church Initiative issued their stern warning to us, and we gave them back their scriptures. They don't know what to do, and they feel that they have a disaster on their hands because we, black women, are out of their control. In their eyes, we are a tornado. Okay, so each trigram, the three solid lines on top, represent heaven and also the father in a home. The bottom trigram, the two solid lines with a broken line beneath it, represent the eldest daughter. So on another level, this hexagram is demonstrating what happens when there is an issue surrounding the father and the eldest daughter. Let's go back to ancient China. In ancient China, it was a family tragedy when a man died, especially when a young widow with younger children were left behind. Women were not seen as equals to men and could not work or engage in commerce or do anything that would empower themselves on the same level as men. So whenever a man passed or he was out of the picture, whenever this happened and there was an eldest daughter, she would be at risk. She could be married off in order to provide resources to support her family. She could be sold to a brothel for the same reason. In a situation where there are orphaned children and there is an older daughter, she was the sacrificial lamb. That was the glue that held the family together. As it pertains to black women, this hexagram clearly shows that a lot of the issues that we have had to contend with is directly related to concerns centered around the father. As I spoke earlier, I said that this hexagram on an elemental level is symbolic of a tornado. And so the eldest daughter in this case would have seen their lives at the point when the father became absent for whatever the reason, as if a tornado came through and destroyed them. You know, the eldest daughter may have envisioned that she would have had a normal life, and then this disaster struck, and now she's in a brothel selling herself to give her family food. You know, eldest daughters, they're the ones that have been married to a man that were to men that were 2 to 3 times their age. You know, an old, gray, cantankerous man. You know, and this was done so that this man can provide for her family. Okay. She is seeing her peers enjoy their youth with men that are closer to their age. But meanwhile, she, as a sacrifice, has to be with this old man, you know, so her family can eat. These are the kind of things that the eldest daughters face, you know, whenever when something is off, okay? Or in the case of many black women, we are achieving against all odds. And now some of us are in some ways being bullied by our families into contributing to their upkeep. This is the plight of the eldest daughter whenever there's an issue with the father. The father's weight is pressing down on her as indicated by the hexagram, and she has to hold up the family. This is a woman who has seen the other side of disaster, and she does not have time to hear about anyone's fantasy-based ideas because she has outlived fantasy. She only has reality to adhere to. A woman who has endured such situations tends to be very perceptive and quick-witted. and she's unable to be turned into a fool. This is another example of how Hexagram 44 explains that the woman in this picture is so powerful. They don't know what to do with her. They can't fool her. They can't woo her with fantasies. Their games don't work on her. They can even be rich men, and she will turn them away while telling them that she wants to be a wife and not a slave. You see, all of this, and there are even more interpretations, are seen within hexagram number 44. So moving along, hexagram 44 has the 6th line stressed. Whenever a hexagram has a stressed line, what it does is gives additional insight into the situation in question. A stressed line also converts the current hexagram, in this case that will be number 44, into a different numbered hexagram. In this case, that will be number 28. So hexagram number 44 with the 6th line stressed is converted into hexagram number 28, which is titled critical mass. Before I go over hexagram number 28, let's see about the 6th stressed line. What insight is it giving us? Okay, the 6th stressed line of hexagram number 44 is giving us insight on a situation where a person is meeting circumstances from a stance of fear. There are numerous ways to react to a situation. The reaction can be joyful, it can be anger, it can be fearful, it can be nonchalant. You get the idea. In this case, the reaction is fear. Imagine that you're watching a show about animals on the Animal Planet or National Geographic, for an example. And while watching, you see an injured animal. And you also see that there is a team of scientists who, from their perspective, want to help the animal. But let's look at it from the animal's perspective. The animal is not aware that the scientists want to help. This is because they are injured and they are in survival mode. And while in survival mode, they perceive the scientists as a threat. So the animal charged the scientists with their horns. This is a defensive stance. So what does this mean as it pertains to Black women? The 6th stress line is basically revealing that your energy is being wasted by engaging the Black manosphere and Kevin Samuels' followers. You have your horns down and you're charging. It takes a lot of time and energy to do this. You can instead use your energy, for an example, to book a vacation somewhere that will recharge your energy, while at the same time benefiting your health and your wealth. The 6th stress line is basically saying that this situation only weighs as much as your thoughts about it. It's only as serious as you make it. Okay. Hexagram 44 with the 6th stress line changes into hexagram number 28. And this one is titled critical mass. Here is a card representing the meaning of this hexagram. Okay. Another interpretation is that the ridge pole or the ridge beam of the roof is sagging. So let's go back to the card. As you see, there is a man leading a horse, a donkey, a mule, whatever it is. It's a pack animal. And the animal is just so overburdened. It has so much stacked on its back. The best way that I can describe this situation is that it is an old way of doing things and it is about to tire out. Like the mule, it is about to tire out. You see, the pack animal has too much on its back. Its back is about to break under the load. Its head is down while it's straining to walk. Now, if we look at the man leading the pack animal, it's clear that he has his back turned to what is about to happen. He's not paying attention the way that he should. Okay. Let's go back to the image of the house where the roof is sagging. You see a similar circumstance. From afar, all of us can see the problem. From afar, we can see that the mule is about to collapse. From afar, we see the roof on this house is about to collapse. However, those who this will affect the most They're the ones that are not paying attention to the big picture. The man is leading an animal whose back is about to break. And the people who would try to live in this house in this condition are not paying attention to the fact that the roof is about to cave in on them. So what hexagram number 28 is saying is that we need to change our direction because the one that we are currently on will eventually collapse. We have to let go of old ways of thinking and embrace the new and unknown. In the first video, I gave many examples of how we can perceive the situation through a fresh and self-nurturing perspective. For instance, instead of wasting energy on Kevin Samuels and his minions, you can book a vacation and enjoy all of the amenities of the location while you are there. Another interpretation as it pertains to the reaction of Black women towards hearing the news that Kevin Samuels passed is that it will be overwhelming to continue to stay in this space. In the first video, I provided an example of a child who is taking revenge by teasing another child who bullied them. In that example, I showed that in order to reverse bully someone, you will have to become a bully yourself. And you will also have to be within close proximity to the target of your revenge. So in a spiritual sense, hexagram number 28 is revealing that the time is now to move forward into a new way of thinking and leave this old one behind. Staying in this old way of thinking is like staying in a house when the roof is about to cave in. Staying in this space will be destructive to all who are there. This hexagram is forewarning of destruction, but also is showing that you can instead spend your spiritual and healthy resources to avoid remaining in a space where the roof is caving in. Your choice to move forward can also be done with peace and tranquility instead of grief and disappointment. Okay? You have an opportunity to live in a mansion and drive a luxury car. Or you can stay here where there's blight, poverty, and crime. You know, most people will jump at the opportunity to live in a mansion and drive a luxury car. However, you are still here slinging mud at Blackistan from the fork of the road between your progress or your stagnation. And you have to choose either or. If you choose the mansion and a luxury car and a peaceful life, then you will have to leave the poverty and the blight behind. You cannot take it with you, or it will cave in on you. Okay? So this concludes the readings from the I-Ching. Now I'll go into my commentary. Now, what I can offer is that what I know for certain is that Sekhmet's energy is involved in this undertaking. Okay? I know her as Sekhmet. She's also recognized as Kali in Hindu spirituality. You see, Sekhmet's energy is released when men become so unrepentant that, they'll fight against truth, they'll fight against good. So only the universe releases Sekhmet, and only the universe can stop her. This is a very powerful energy. If a man tried to engage in hand-to-hand combat with Sekhmet, she would reflect his strength, and then, on top of that, she would overpower him. Her energy is wild. She's highly sexual too. She is the one that rides on top. If a man tried to lay on top of her, she would toss him beneath her, pin him down, and ride him until he climaxes. And when she is done with making him climax, when he's confused because he's never experienced anything like this before, he'll have a little tear glistening in his eye, okay? And it's at that point, she will laugh at him because she's overpowered him. He is so sapped of energy that he cannot do anything to stop her, not even in the bedroom. She loves showing men how meaningless their physical strength and their perceptions about dominating the feminine is to her. Showing men how powerless they are and deflating their egos brings out joy in Sekhmet. It brings out her laughter. Sekhmet does not care about anything that is considered to be proper. She doesn't. At the same time, Sekhmet is a very healing energy. The way that we all felt when the loudest voice of misogynoir or misogyny against black women collapsed on Cinco de Mayo, a day of celebration, that healing energy was also the work of Sekhmet. She validated you. And just know that this is just the beginning. There is more to come. Sekhmet clears out all of the bullcrap. Sekhmet's element is fire. However, Sekhmet's destruction is indiscriminate towards those who are in her path, whether they're good or not, because she takes no prisoners. Think about the house with the collapsing roof. Now, whether you're a good person or a bad person, when that thing collapses, it will just simply affect anyone who stands beneath it. That is the way that Sekhmet operates. She is known by Kali. She's known as Kali by the Hindus. And you see that Kali has blood on her hands and her tongue. Sekhmet is the exact same way. She's a bloodthirsty goddess. Kali has men's severed heads as a necklace, and she wears their severed arms as her skirt. Her hair is wild, and she does not care. This is the point where all will desperately seek solutions to try and stop her, like the men coming to meet the woman in hexagram number 44. But the only one that can stop her is the one that unleashed her, which is the universe. This is just the beginning. There is more to come, okay? And the only way for the men to even begin to placate Sekhmet is through the principles of Heteru, also known as Hathor in the Greek language. One example of this is for the men to pay what we weigh in 24-karat gold. Sekhmet will not be appeased until they prove their poetry with their actions. Okay? The words have to be backed up with action. That's what I meant by that. You know when they say that she's worth more than her weight in gold? Sekhmet will only calm down. She won't stop, but she may begin to calm down at the sight of someone giving her more than the equivalent of her weight in gold. With gold prices being about $2,000 at the moment per ounce, and the average black woman weighing 200 pounds, add to it that there are 16 ounces in each pound. When we multiply that together, it amounts to $6.4 million. Black males who follow manosphere rhetoric are here expecting 50-50 and for women to yield access to their bedrooms in exchange for a $100 Ruth Chris steakhouse meal. So it will take the divine energy of Sekhmet to force them to their knees and burn their useless ideas out of existence, much like what was shown in the imagery of hexagram number 44 coming to meet. There is a caveat or a caution with Sekhmet. Anyone good or bad that is in her path when she rampages and she unleashes will perish. So what does this mean? It means that you must use this favorable energy and this favorable time that we are in to heal yourselves from the trauma of Blackistan and to transform into the best versions of yourself spiritually that you can be. Be careful not to be consumed by the very fire that was meant to clear your path. Okay, an example of what I'm talking about here will be some of the infighting that I've observed within the swirling and divestment arenas. I suggest that everyone open their minds to understanding that people have different spiritual assignments and different spiritual powers. Some of us are the fiery types that tend to blaze their way through situations. Because we have command over fire, we may think lesser or even underestimate those of us who represent different elements. For instance, the fiery type may see the watery types who tend to take a cooler approach as being too stagnant. That is until there is a stream of water being aimed your way. Some of us metal types may think that our strong outer layer will resist the elements. That is until you're being melted by the fire or rusted by the water. Some of us may think lesser of the air types, not recognizing how pivotal air is to us all. Without oxygen, the fire won't burn. Without oxygen, the water will become hydrogen. Or the earthly types, because the earthly types are just laying there, so we think. That is until there's a sinkhole or an earthquake. So the reason that I am saying this is to encourage everyone's minds to remain open. It is better to harmonize our elements, combining our strengths for the common good, than to try to force the adaptation of one element into another type of element. Respect that fire is fire, water is water, and so on. Forcing water to conform to the rules of fire is disastrous, and vice versa. Be sure to look at the good and try to understand and accept the differences that are beneficial, as opposed to overreacting to what you have deemed to be bad and then proceeding to burn it down or flood it out or melt it away. That's all I have to say for now. Please be sure to like and subscribe to my videos. Until next time, take care of yourselves.